Hi, I'm Patty.
I'm Kim Michelle.
And I'm Jill. Welcome to our podcast. It's a great day to talk.
Because honestly, what day isn't a great day to talk?
So join us in our conversation.
A Great Day to Talk is brought to you by St. George Design, offering complete website design, social media management, search engine optimization, Google and Facebook ad management, and many other digital and print marketing services. stgeorgedesign.com. And by Richardson Brothers Custom Homes, third-generation builders who have been building custom homes in southern Utah for over 25 years. They will take your dream home from concept to completion. Contact richardsonbrothers.com. The April Gates Group and Zion Canyon Real Estate have been specializing in helping southern Utah clients buy and sell property for over 18 years. We can help you too. Call or text April today. 435-632-8869. 435-632-8869.
Hello, all our friends and relations. Hello, my friends here. We are here for our bi-weekly conversation. It is a great day to talk, as it always is a great day to talk. I am Ms. Jill, not known as Mrs. Burkett now because I'm out of school.
That's right.
Exactly. And to my left, I have the beautiful Kim Michelle, Miss Kim Michelle, who is not Miss Poland right now.
That's
because
right.
she's out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And to her left is Miss Patty, who
Yes.
is also out of school and no longer Patty Richardson. So, hi, my friends.
Hi.
I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah.
Yay.
It's kind of weird going every 2 weeks. I feel like it's been a while.
It's
Forever.
been like a month.
I know.
Yeah.
Hasn't it been a month? We've had
Yeah.
a lot happen in
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And
2
so,
weeks, yeah.
We're trying to catch up on that, trying to catch up on the fact that we're into summer, and trying to catch up on the fact that our world is in some, again, crisis
Yeah.
of all things. It's the end of retrograde. That's like, I'm just hoping once this changes a little bit, then maybe something will settle down. I don't think so.
You hope for that for sure. And I think we get to step into something more than just hope.
It has to be because nothing else
Yeah.
is working.
Mm-hmm. I would
Nothing
agree
else
with
is
that.
working.
Yeah.
So today,
Let's, real quick, I didn't mention this to you guys before, but should we just do a quick recap on April and
Yeah.
last
Yes.
week's podcast. 2 weeks ago, we had a podcast with our friend April Gates, who was with a group going to Poland to help Ukraine refugees. And I don't know if you have followed her or if you have donated to her Venmo account. We've shared it on our website a couple times. However,
She's still there.
she's still there. She'll be there
Yes.
till Thursday. And
did you see the pictures that she posted yesterday of all of the items that they had from that afternoon?
yeah, that. And then she also posted that there is a baby daycare area in a train
Station.
station. That they heard was out of formula, so they went and bought formula and diapers and wipes and got to that refugee camp that had babies at it. I imagine there's different refugee camps for different ages, I guess, but this is where the babies were.
When they get off the train.
Yeah.
Right. So they had
Yeah.
all those
Okay.
items available for the moms as soon as they got off the train coming out of the Ukraine. And thankfully, April and her friends were able to get some, do we call it merchandise or needs?
Because
supplies,
the
supplies.
products are available in Poland.
Yeah.
But the people from Ukraine can't get at
Right.
it. And can you imagine their money's in banks that have been blown up or
locked up.
or who knows how they're getting their own supplies and just getting across the border. I know they bought a plane ticket for someone to help that person get to where they need to be with their
daughter.
family. And they're just, a person by person or group by group, they're trying to offer some support and aid to. And
one of the things I noticed that April posted was a lot of time you're working for the 99 and sometimes you find the one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one
I
is the
liked
one
that.
they got.
Yep. I love that she
ticket
said
to get
that.
back with her family. Unbelievable. And it just, if you haven't taken a look at that if nothing else, just get on April Gates.
April and Gates, right? Is that
on Facebook?
April
on
and Gates Facebook.
And
yeah, get on there.
See the things that the miracles are creating, because they're helping people that are us.
Yeah, and going in and
into
specifically, you're not just sending money that may or may not get to the people. They're actually delivering
the supplies and
products.
taking them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we want to thank anyone who listened to this podcast and heard about April, and maybe you didn't know her before, but you trusted us enough to contribute or make a donation to support that process and what that looks like, just because you know us and that was enough, or you know her, or it spoke to you. So we want to really just thank you for that. And she's still going to be there for a couple more days. So there's still a big difference we can make there.
Yes,
absolutely.
And
well, and
I think it also just puts a spotlight on that we are all part of a shared human experience, and we can't maybe solve all of the issues that are going on, but there is a place that we can step into contribution and service.
That's
and
true. Supporting those that are doing that.
Right. And it's not an either or situation. It's not like either I can help over there or I can do something over here. We get to shift our thinking into both and. How can I support here, both here and my fellow brothers and sisters that don't live right where I live, or in an accompanying state, but still are part of our shared human experience. How can I contribute and be of service there?
Well, and one of the things that I added to my post when I reposted her post just a couple of days ago was that I want to remind everybody that April and those that she's traveling with all paid for their own travel.
Yeah.
Their travel was done by their own money, not from any of the donations that have been given, that have been contributed. Nothing has been paid for to support April and her friends. They have done their own support. Everything 100% is going to the people who are just like us. And thank God there are people that are stepping in and helping them.
Yeah.
Because I think we take for granted that we're in a position, in a place where we haven't had the tremendous amount of war on our soil. We've had some horrible things happen on our soil, but we're not in constant, like 2014 was the last time there was a huge military combat issue going on in Ukraine. What were you doing in 2014? Well, I wasn't worrying about the fact that I could just run to Harmon's and get whatever it was I needed. And so
I actually am just hearing about this right now.
Yes. The 2014? Yeah. It's true though. Like when you think about all of the countries.
That's how disconnected
on
I think
the other side of the globe. And I just feel really strongly that part of the disconnect is that not yours, anybody's disconnect, and part of mine is this inability to connect with people are experiencing what's happening, who are our age, who are raising their kids, who are working, who are doing the same things that we're doing. It's not some country that is completely 100% remote that we can't relate to. This is us. To steal the quote from the show.
I totally agree with that. And I think that anytime we can look at a situation and somehow distinguish ourselves from them or create a space to otherize them, right? I'm somehow totally different from you. Yeah. The only reason we do that is so that we can separate ourselves from them and then justify how we treat them differently than how we would treat someone who we see as part of who we are.
Right. I'm just lucky. I'm lucky that I get to be here. So I don't need to worry about the others. That's the others and us. I don't, I struggle with that. But not to get all dark and dismal about it, even though it is dark and dismal.
No,
I'm so
because there's hope there. That's
grateful for April and her friends and what they're doing
and
in their
anybody
space.
anyone who sent them a message that said, thank you for what you're doing there. Anyone who has made any kind of a contribution or a donation, anyone who has sent any kind of a positive message, anybody who saw that and said, okay, I can't do that, but I can go down to my shelter and give there. Anyone who's been inspired by that, then thank you. That's what that's about. That's part of seeing ourselves as part of that shared human experience. And that is really what makes a difference. And especially when you deal with traumatic experiences that go on around you, and it's so easy then for things to become polarizing. We have to look for ways to bring ourselves together rather than to allow the polarization to happen.
Right. And we need to mention one more time, she's there a couple of more days, and this polarizing thing that we experience here, we need to make sure that we, like you said, eliminate it so that we can help all of us that are in this global experience. And one of the things that I find helpful for maybe when I talk to people to think about is that everything that we give in our dollar, they can buy 3 times the amount there in Poland. You with $10 can do $30 worth of work.
Yeah.
Which in the life of a mom who's there with her child because her husband is off fighting.
Because they can't leave.
Please just think about, what would I do if my husband had to suddenly leave and I'm here with my toddler and my newborn baby, what $30 could do.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think sometimes we overthink it just a little bit, right? I mean, I think it's easy to go, well, how do you know what's going to be used over there? If you give this or you give that they're going to use it for something good.
Right.
And I remember I was teaching a lesson once, and I was talking about giving a donation to a homeless person on the street. And the response was, well, they're probably just going to go out and buy alcohol or something with that.
Right.
And my response was, but my gift comes in the giving.
Right.
What they choose to do with it,
it's more about,
that's not on me. That's them. Yeah. My gift is my reward, my, what I get from that is in my willingness to give. And I think across the board, our gift is in our willingness to be in grace, is in our willingness to listen, is in our willingness to be in contribution. That's our gift. If somebody else takes advantage of that or whatever, that's on them. That's not on you.
Right. Right. You have to give without judgment of where that goes. And
gifting means that you're giving without expecting a reciprocal thing.
Yeah.
That's true giving.
Yeah.
True sacrifice
is. Or just don't. If you can't do that, then just do something else. If you don't want to give them money, buy a meal. If you don't want to, do something that you can do if you want to.
Yeah.
Sure.
No one's making you.
Yeah.
you don't have to do anything. But yeah.
Yeah. So go, April.
Yeah.
I sure am thankful for what you're doing, because it's certainly not in my space to be able to do right now. So I'm grateful that I can support you.
And like we
to
said,
do what
she's
I
still
wish I
there
could.
for a couple of days. So I'm sure she'll still willingly take anything that you have to contribute. And we're just blessed to have her, and we can't wait to have her come back
and
on
tell
the
us
podcast
her
and
story.
tell us all about it. Yeah.
Amen.
But April and Gates on Facebook. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I'm glad we were able to give a little shout out to her and her
her
plight.
Their plight.
Yeah, with the
her generosity and their plight.
We're all 3 school teachers, so I'm sure anybody listening can imagine what has been on our mind the last week.
Yeah.
And not just week, but
always
for years. The first school shooting that I ever knew about.
You're going to say it. I'm going to know what you're going to say.
Columbine.
Yep.
It was on April 20th.
Yep.
I remember exactly where I was. I was teaching.
420.
And I remember thinking how odd that was.
It was
because those were odd.
Yeah.
School shootings weren't normal. We cannot normalize this.
Ever.
And I was teaching probably what year was that?
What year was that? Was it 97 or 98?
It would have been 97 or 98.
Yeah, because I was going to say that was the year that I was doing my student teaching.
Yeah,
and my family.
So my first year at Pine
out.
View was 97. Mm-hmm.
I was finishing my student teaching, and I was at Pine View doing my student teaching, and
It was 99.
Oh, it was 99?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we were all at Pine View.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Oh
were you at Pine View at 99?
99.
Yep. Yeah. So, and that was a surprise that,
To say the least.
But I want to date back a little bit. When I was in high school and I was in history and I had Mert Level. And if any of you had Mr. Mert Level, you are lucky to have had Mert Level as a teacher. He was my teacher in history at Pine View. And he recently passed away, and what a legend. He is a legend for sure. And he taught kids, not necessarily a lot of things. The funny things that you remember about Mert Level is that he ate stale donuts, and he wore red socks because he wanted to stomp on Cedar High. So he always wore red socks, and most of the time he drove a moped around. So you always saw his socks. He had a comb over, and he would comb it the other way, and he would take his teeth out. Anything to
Oh my
to get us to listen. All things that I won't do because I'm too.
You
don't
can take
have
your
vape.
teeth out.
I can't take my. I could probably do a comb over.
Just checking.
But I just want to think back to when I was, 16, and I'm in his history class, and he's teaching about World War II. And mind you, this was in 1985, 86, and World War II ended in about 43-ish. And so we're talking 50 years, not that long.
Right.
But as a 16-year-old, that was like a million years ago.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
wow, that was 100,000 years ago. That's never going to happen again. So why are we learning about that? That was too long ago. And what I think what we've done as a society is that was a school shooting. Well, that was a weird thing. That's never going to happen again. That's not a thing, because that happens. Those people, other people.
It happens to somebody else.
Yeah, and we can relate that to what's happening in the Ukraine, what happened in Texas, what happened in Columbine, what happened other places, because it just tends to seem that it's, that's
Someone
them.
else.
Or that was a really long time ago, so that wouldn't happen. And when we were all there at the Columbine situation, do you remember that?
Yeah. Yep.
And
You don't even know what to say.
I don't, And I've read several books, fiction,
Yes.
nonfiction, fictional, historical fiction.
Right. Wally Lamb
Yeah.
was one that wrote. My family went into a panic because I was a new teacher in a high school. And what are you going to do? How are you going to protect yourself? And there's a lot that goes through your mind when you're a first year teacher, and that's something that happens. And it's not supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm. We don't really train for earthquakes anymore.
We don't train for earthquakes anymore. And I don't know how many of our friends out there recognize that, because I'm not sure how many of our friends have kids in the school system or how many that don't. But as someone who just graduated her last student who, a student of public school, my son, and I think your kids too, Patty, went through the school system having shooter drills, having lockouts and lockdowns.
Right.
And the amount of time that we spend practicing how to protect ourselves for those can cause some true trauma.
Well, at least like this could happen.
That's exactly right. The fact that our kids very young have had to know that I have to learn how to hide from someone who might shoot me in a school.
And
that
I have
was
to be
my
quiet, and I have to
right. Right. And that in and of itself is traumatizing for me to think about, that that's what how my kids looked at or had to digest their years at school.
Right. Was it Jodi Picoult? Is that how you say her? Jodi Picoult.
Yeah.
Didn't
She did one too, yes.
Yeah. I read her book as well.
Seconds.
19 minutes.
19 minutes. There you go.
19 minutes, and Wally Lamb's was...
Columbine. I think
Was
that's
it
what it's called? Columbine.
I haven't read that.
It's a pretty thick, pretty intense, and it comes from the perspective of a teacher who was...
The Hour I First Believed.
There we go.
Yeah.
And it comes from the
Yeah, I did read
perspective
that.
of a teacher who was
Yeah.
involved in that.
Yeah.
So, I have people that ask me all of the time, how do you continue to go when you know that that is something that can potentially happen? And I don't know, what do you guys think? How do we continue as teachers to go into a public school setting, into our classrooms, knowing that we are sitting ducks? It was the most interesting post that I read this week. A former student of mine who was and is delightful young man. He's a music teacher now at a junior high, I want to say, up north. And so he has multiple students in a classroom. Like, his classroom is, a music teacher's classroom is way more,
Right.
I don't want to say chaotic, but moving around,
noisy.
unstructured, not unstructured, but just lots of movement and lots of opportunity for,
Somebody to come in without noticing.
there you go. And he had posted a very eloquent post about what these two teachers did at this elementary school last week in protecting their kids.
Yeah.
And reading his post just took my breath away, in that he is one of the students that I would have protected as well. And to read that he is now in that place where he is of the mindset that I will protect my students. And it was a really poignant moment for me to think about what it is. We talk about how it is to be a teacher, and all the craziness and all the busy and all of this and all the legislation and all of the craziness of all of the things that come at us as teachers and as someone that is a role model for students. But on top of that, we are protectors. And to read about someone that I would have protected had I needed to do that, is now put himself in that position as well, is gut-wrenching, because I can't believe we're still in this place.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to believe that after Sandy Hook, you have Columbine, and then I think there's a moment that you're like, well, that's
not going to happen again.
Yeah,
that can't happen again.
So
that was a one-time
that could
deal.
Never happen again. It's unfathomable that it could happen again. And then you have Sandy Hook, and then you have Marjorie Stoneman. Then
and all the millions, hundreds that happen in between.
Mm-hmm. And then to see it in Uvalde, and I know all the questions which need to be asked, and I think they're all valid questions about who operated and what did the response look like. I think they're all valid questions that need to be asked and answered. But honestly, I think the kids are already telling us everything that as adults in the world, we need to hear.
Sure.
So when they're telling you that they knew what to do, that they knew the drill, they knew
to be quiet,
to get under their desks, they knew to hide, they knew to not say anything, they knew the drill, and they're prepared to do it again for the next one, then
what does that
think
say?
We have to say, adults in this world, we can do better. We can do better. I'm not suggesting that I have all of the solutions, because I certainly don't. I don't know any single person who probably does. And I think that there are many factors. So those individuals who are saying that it is a mental health issue, I think there probably is some of that
in some situations
involved in this.
Right.
For those who are saying that it is, you know, the breakdown of the family, that it is the culture of violence, I think that you are probably right. When we have 12 mass shootings over Memorial Day weekend after Uvalde, this Memorial Day weekend, 12 or more mass shootings over the Memorial Day weekend, you're probably right. To some extent, all of those are factors. We've also got to then be willing to say, is access to high voltage weaponry for people who are potentially in
all of those categories.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Is that a contributing factor as well?
Here's my question.
If it is, then as the adults in the world,
in the room,
yes, then we get to stand up and do the things that get to be done, even if it means that I might have to go through some additional paperwork in order to get the weapon that I know I have a right to access. But for somebody to not be able to red flag that this young man in Uvalde can get that type of a weapon with that many rounds of ammunition at 18.
At 18.
When he can't drink, he
He
can't
doesn't even
smoke,
have a fully
he can't get a
frontal
handgun.
lobe.
Well,
And you know why he can't get a handgun? Because they don't want him to hurt himself.
I don't understand how you can get AR-15 but not a handgun. How can you? Why isn't it that you can't get any guns? Like what?
Until your frontal lobe
is fully developed.
Well, we can let's talk to Miss Richardson, AP Psych teacher. Tell us, Patty, you know the statistics and you know the numbers.
Well,
when is the frontal lobe developed? Go ahead.
Well, that's the thing. It's in the early 20s. I would say 19 is too young to choose to buy cigarettes. 21 is too young to choose to buy alcohol. Your frontal lobe isn't fully developed until you're 24, 25.
There's a reason you can't rent a car.
Yeah.
And there's a reason you can't rent a hotel room.
Right.
Until
because
you are
of the
25.
impulsivity.
Right.
Because of what kids will do
And
because of that.
Because they don't see the long-term ramifications to their short-term decision making.
I would have been incensed when I was 20 to have been told I couldn't have rented a car and rented this and rented that, right? But at the same time, I recognize now why that is a thing, right? I mean, we have people that do join the military and serve our country, and thank goodness that they do, but legally they still can't do a lot of things.
And should those decisions be made at 18 to join the military
I think
anyway?
Correct. You know, and even then in the military, their weapon is accounted for. It's locked up when they're not in a training situation. They have somebody who's acting as a parent in the military. Parental in loco, I think is what it's called, right? Which we're considered as teachers in the classroom. We can act as a parent in the classroom, absent a parent. Because we know that we're allowed that because we know they're not fully. Yeah.
Well, and also the fact that if a person is in the military, they are being incredibly trained.
Yeah.
On gun use. So they're being trained, and we can't guarantee like this 18-year-old could just roll up and buy a gun. I can't roll up and drive a car at 16.
No.
I have to have so many classes. I have to have 6 months of driving. I have to have a parent in the car with me.
Because a car is a weapon for sure.
Yes. And so I actually can't even scuba dive without
you have to certify. You've been doing classes and classes.
I just certified as a scuba diver this last week, and I had to take classes to be able to scuba dive.
How many hours, Patty, did you have to do?
I had to do probably 10 like in a swimming pool, and then I had to do an open water, and then I had to do tests.
Isn't that telling?
Yeah. I can buy a gun without 1 hour
exactly
instruction.
Right. And I just can't get over the fact that we are the only profession that we have to practice. Our kids have to practice staying safe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Our kids have to, minimum of 4 times a year.
By law.
By law.
By law, we have to practice
Hiding
different
from a shooter.
situations.
Hiding from a shooter.
We have to do our fire drills that take us out of the building, but we have to do
We have to
In
practice
class.
shooting.
in class.
And they come by and make sure our door's locked and that they can't
and
hear
they
us.
can't hear us and they can't see us and
Yep.
that there's no lights on. And what other profession besides
Well,
education?
I'm sure airline. I'm sure there.
well,
I'm
yes,
sure.
yes.
Yeah.
And okay. And do any of those involve children exclusively?
No.
So the fact that this is where our poor kids are at, to do that, I just, I can't, as a mom, that like chokes me.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about, first of all, I just want a little shout out to Cameron. Cameron, I adore you, and you are one that I would, and you know, I hope you know this, I would have jumped and protected you as well. So thank you
Well,
for your
here's the
comment.
truth of it. I think any teacher,
Anyone.
Well,
regardless,
yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking of the worst kid in my class, and I would still
Do it.
do whatever had to be done to protect that child, because that's what my promise is to them
Yep.
when they're in my classroom. And,
Well, yeah.
you know, well, let me say within reason, because I'm not prepared to arm myself
Nope. And that's
in my classroom. I
go to
know
that.
that there's a conversation out there that says that's how we should resolve this. Is not a conversation about taking weapons away from people who should not have them, but let's arm
Everybody.
every teacher in the classroom.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk
so
about that.
Actually, I got a question about
Yeah.
that. So, how do they expect to arm you? Who's going to pay for that? Who's going to pay for your training? Who's going to pay for all the gun-related things that you need in your classroom when you guys still don't have money to buy number 2 pencils?
Well, and that's part of the problem, is that a lot of that extracurricular or that extra professional development thing, that doesn't get included.
We put a teacher tax on bullet sales that pays for the arming of teachers.
And then I will quit my job too,
yeah.
because I'll never
There-
carry in
there's
my
no-
classroom.
There's no.
There's no place.
So-
And it's
in my
not, honestly,
classroom.
it's not even, I don't think, even about that, because I think it goes deeper than that. Because a lot of those who are advocating for arming our teachers are the same ones who are saying, you can't trust me in the classroom to pick what
pick a
literature book
Yeah.
my
Oh,
students should
right,
read.
right.
You can
want to
so-
trust me with
you
a
can
gun.
carry a gun.
Yeah.
You can carry a gun,
But you
You
can't
cannot
just
pick
tell my kids
the
what
book
they're learning.
that my students should be exposed to.
my kids can't learn in your
but
classroom because
let's arm
you're-
you.
Yeah.
And
no.
I think that all of those are just red herrings to avoid the real conversation, which is, and it happens on both sides. So to the extremes on both sides, stop it. That's what I would say. Stop it. Because you are not helping the conversation about what is reasonable
Safe
legislation
and
that
logical.
could be put into place that is maybe not everything that one extreme would want, and
Right.
nor is it everything that the other would want. But it does create something in the middle.
Let's
that we
let's
could
talk
agree
about
to.
English. Let's talk about words.
Yes.
That word is called compromise.
Yes.
And if we want
Mediation,
to use the
yes.
exact definition, I don't think that that is a word that is used. I don't think that act is
compromise
used.
word.
Compromise is not used. It's not a practice. It's either or, which just leads to where we are in
Well, that's
every
why
other
we
thing.
have to demand more.
Yep.
And the only reason we don't get more is because we don't demand more. And so we have to be willing to tell our representatives, tell our legislators, tell our principals, tell everyone that there are sensible regulations that can be put in place that are not designed to take every weapon away from a gun owner, that there are legitimate reasons why
all of us.
that you can have your weapon that can still protect against not every
Not the
there's-
zombie apocalypse?
Maybe not that. You know, but that could increase the level of safety for ourselves, for our workers, for our kids. And it's not even just that. I mean, what happened in Buffalo at the Tops Market there, that's another 18-year-old with body armor. Something should have red flagged when you're buying
when you're 18,
an AK-15 and you're buying that many
AR,
weapons,
an AR,
excuse me, and you're buying that many rounds of ammunition, and you're buying body armor.
You can't even buy cough syrup if you're not old
it's
enough.
it's behind the counter. You're right. You absolutely cannot. And do you know that you can't even buy kombucha in certain places?
Well, I don't think you should be able to buy that because that's just disgusting.
It isn't very good, but it is very good for your gut health.
But see, here's the thing, though. That's what I'm talking about. We were in Maine, and Ethan's girlfriend wanted to buy some kombucha, and they wouldn't let her do that.
I mean,
and at the time
she was 20
She was
something.
20.
Yeah.
She was 20.
Yeah.
Please, where is the logical thinking? Where is the reasonableness?
There isn't, because we're so entrenched
Polarized.
in our camps.
Yes, we are.
But if something like these two incidents in Buffalo and in Uvalde, and then the incidents over the weekend,
this whole weekend.
cannot at least get us to step into a place that says, okay, can we at least agree that what we're doing is not working? Can we at least
to disagree on
start
this point?
from that premise?
Yep.
And then say what could work, not solve it all, but what is something we
What
could
can we
agree
do
on,
to reduce the rates of gun violence
Yes.
and gun safety?
especially because these young kids will also pay the ultimate price. The young shooters,
Oh, yeah.
these
They're either gonna
18-year-olds
die or they'll
who
be
have
in prison.
been, who go
Their
online.
lives are done.
Yeah,
Their lives are done.
Yeah.
Their lives are done, along with the 21 people.
Yeah,
They're done.
Mhm.
And the lives of those who are the family of those who are done.
yeah.
And then to have, this is my political statement of the moment, then to have an NRA convention days.
So insensitive, if nothing else. Even if you would have just said, you know what, we don't think we're to blame for this, and at the same time, we appreciate the pain that exists in this community, and because of that, for no other reason, because we acknowledge that, we're going to
postpone.
choose to move.
Yep.
I could have, at some level, respected that position.
Absolutely.
Right.
But instead, to move forward like that happened, it's so hard for me to fathom where is the humanity in that conversation. And then you have Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, who is in the middle of war crimes going on in his country. And speaks out to the human tragedy in Uvalde. I'm just like, we can do better. And we must do better because we are better than this.
Yeah.
We are better than this.
Agreed.
So I want to know why assault rifles are available for purchase in the first place. Mass shootings don't occur without an automatic weapon because they've got to reload or they've got one more. Think of Las Vegas. Las Vegas.
I mean, Las Vegas is another.
Go ahead.
Well, we had a guy in Europe a couple weeks ago went on a shooting rampage with a bow and arrow, killed 5 people in a supermarket.
Okay.
And then a couple times in China, I've seen people with hatchets go on rampages as well. So it's
let's do 5 minus 21.
Yeah, I mean it's
yeah, yeah.
five is five's
minus
too many.
21. 5
Oh,
is
yeah.
So
way too
for
many.
sure a bow and arrow.
And I can hear that, Sean.
Yeah,
I can totally hear that. If you're committed,
Yeah, you'll find a
You'll-
way.
oh,
You'll
for
find a
sure.
way.
But
of
5
course,
is not 21.
I think the level of crazy is equal to the level of access you have to
Whatever it
Well,
is.
Political carnage.
that's what I was going to say is why do we have access? Because an 18-year-old is going to be impulsive.
They are. They are
and
by
that's-
nature. We
yeah.
know that.
And it's
Right.
not a derogatory comment. It's a scientific
Yeah,
comment.
yeah. And so that's why I wonder, if an 18-year-old has access to an automatic weapon, that there's no reason for that. There's no reason.
But yeah, you have the Vegas shooter who was in his 60s.
Exactly.
You had this bow and arrow guy who was also in his 60s.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So you're right.
I would totally agree that just dealing with arm restrictions, weapons, safety
Isn't enough.
restrictions is probably not going to resolve all of the issues because there are mental health issues involved
Absolutely.
in a lot of these shootings. So it isn't a one
Size fits all.
That's
a
right.
lie. Anybody
Absolutely.
who came up with the one size fits all in any category, clothing
Well,
or
and-
anything, is a farce because
Well,
one size
and I,
does not fit.
I was even talking to our our school resource officer last week, and said, "What do you think?" And he said, there's not one way
Solution.
to solve this.
There
But there's
isn't
a
one
lot,
way.
but there are ways to
work towards
work
a
towards
solution.
That's
work
exactly
towards
right.
reducing.
right.
Listen, I don't know why there needs to be an assault weapon at all. And I would be okay. I would be okay with starting with, if you're under 21, you can't have one.
Yeah,
An assault weapon.
Yes, you
There's
can't
not-
have one.
an 18-year-old doesn't need an AR-15.
I'm not going to come after you, adult person, unless there's a red flag law in place that there's a mental health issue
Right.
or there's a felony conviction. I think red flag laws are just absolutely, that just totally makes sense. If you
Especially
have a
for
felony law,
weapons.
yeah. But for law-abiding citizens, I don't get it. I don't understand why you need it, but I don't have to understand
Right.
necessarily
Right.
what it means to you
Correct.
for it to be important to you. I get
Correct.
that. I can understand that. I can come to a compromise on that. But can you come to me and compromise on an 18-year-old does not need access to that?
A frontal lobe. A
Yeah.
developing frontal lobe.
So we had the question, and Sean, you're also a teacher. Would you be, how do we feel about arming ourselves? I'm going to say I won't do it, and I have my concealed weapons permit just because 10 years ago I got it because my friend was getting it. And I thought, that might be interesting to practice or have fun. We like to go skeet shooting, but I wouldn't carry concealed ever. I'm not confident in it, and I know that, and so I shouldn't. So I certainly wouldn't do that in a classroom setting.
I know here at the university, I know professors that do conceal carry, and I'm talking to some of the police officers on campus. They are very concerned with how that concealment is. Part of the concealment is concealed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been students where even some students who carry as well with the concealed carry. And one incident, a student leaned forward and his shirt came up exposing his gun. Well, the girl that sat behind him,
Freaked
left
out.
class, had to come apart and refused to come to class for the rest of the semester.
Sure.
And so it was like, if you're going to conceal it, you need to
That's
conceal it.
and that's part of the rule, isn't it?
Yeah.
That
But-
it's
I think
not
so.
to be. You cannot.
Brandish it at any kind.
You can't brandish it, and it
But-
cannot be. You can't tell that someone is carrying.
But you don't have to have concealed. You can open carry in Utah.
I'm not sure what the
You
laws
can
are.
open carry in Utah.
and what it is here on campus.
Nowadays, I don't know about the campus, but I know in Utah you can open carry. You don't have to have a
Yeah,
concealed
I have
But
seen
I
permit
also
in
know
the
that
grocery like
The
that.
cops like to know who has the guns on
Right.
Yeah,
campus.
the school. Yeah,
So
sure.
it's like if we know that persons X, Y, and Z are in that classroom and there's a school shooter in that building, then they know that there's 3 other people that are
Sure.
concealed carry.
I
But-
think that that's part of the requirement too, but they can't mandate that teachers
No.
identify.
Correct.
I
Right.
can't even imagine, though, that you have an 18-year-old sitting in a college class with a concealed weapon and is faced with an intruder and has to pull and kill and shoot
yeah.
an intruder and
Or-
now is dealing with the repercussions
Or that
of
75-year-old
that.
professor.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I-
And I'm gonna back you up a little bit. I think an 18-year-old's ability to recover from that is
Emotional.
emotional, having to do that versus 75 is going to be a different type of recovery. But I think it's traumatic, both 75 and 18.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that. And that's the one thing I was just going to mention is that fighting a fire only works if you're willing to let the whole world burn. So fighting fire with fire. So if we're going to, if we're willing to carry a gun, we have to be willing to do that. And I'm not willing to do any of that.
Even with
but
the
maybe
nuttiness,
somebody are. Yeah.
Even with the nuttiness
I
of
just
this
don't-
school year, think about what it is I'm talking about.
Oh, I have students that I wouldn't trust today. If I had a gun on me, I would be scared to death of a student
Exactly.
taking it from me.
What
Well,
about
leveling the playing field, you're saying that removing guns is leveling the playing field. What if we go back to Old West days?
Yeah.
Where
Everyone
everybody
has a
carried.
gun. Mhm.
Everybody carried.
yeah?
Well, I mean, I heard that coming from the NRA's convention this weekend and from some of the politicians, that the way you defeat a bad man with a gun is for good
Have a bigger
men.
gun.
To have guns. Interesting that it's all men conversation.
Right.
But as for a
They
good
did have a great
man,
fashion show, though. Did you see the fashion show?
I missed that.
There's a fashion show. It was men and women on how you can conceal your weapon through various layers of different types of clothing and skirts
man. I'll
and
be living in
jackets
my
and
backyard
stuff.
for the rest of forever.
I'm not sure what the background music was for that.
Oh,
Some runway walk or something like that.
Clearly,
But clearly, even that argument is not true because
Right.
you had good men with weapons in Uvalde, and that was not enough to protect that classroom of kids and those two teachers from a bad man with a high caliber weapon.
right. Yeah.
And it's now all, I mean, it'd be under investigation anyway, but now it's under deep investigation as to how it was handled.
For sure. And I think there'll always be questions about that, but I don't want it to be lost that but for that young man with that weapon
wouldn't
and
have
that much ammunition at his disposal, we wouldn't even be having a conversation about how law enforcement responded there.
Zero.
So that is the beginning of the conversation. That should be investigated for sure, but it does discount the conversation that all you need is good men with weapons to defeat a bad man with a gun, because that's not true.
That's not true.
It's not going to
Yeah,
be me.
it takes good people. It takes good people like we are to step up and say, this is not good enough for our kids, and it's not good enough for my neighbor, and it's not good enough for my dear friends that sit on both sides of me. It's not good enough for the people I love, and it's not good enough for the people I don't even know but don't deserve what happened there.
Right.
And that's
Right.
what we get to step up and do.
Right. And I don't think it's a matter, like you said, it's not a matter of you have to give up all your weapons.
No.
It's a matter of let's have some
Civil conversation, some civil
let's have some
discourse.
logic, safety.
Yeah.
Let's not put weapons of
Mass
you know,
destruction.
right in the hands of
of a-
18-year-olds.
Yeah. That's a good
Let's start there.
Let's start there.
That's just a start. I
Yeah.
mean, there's more that needs to happen, but that right there is logical to start.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh man. So we know that this is just the beginning of the conversation, and the topic of our podcast is a great day to talk. It doesn't mean that it's a great day to talk about always topics
Always
that
the
are
fun
great
things.
fun topics.
Nope.
But they're topics that are essential and important for who we are and who we profess to be. And so thank you for being with us today. We moved to our new summer schedule, which is the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of every month.
So
So
in
we'll be
2
back.
weeks?
Yep, in 2 weeks.
And we would love to hear any comments you might have.
And
Yeah,
peace and love,
post
you
them.
guys.
Yeah,
Peace
yeah.
and love to
And
you
be
all.
safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to It's a Great Day to Talk.
Be sure to follow and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform.
And until next week,
Get out there and talk.
This has been a production from a podcast studio.